just arrived at Le Grand Puy ski station. This is a video that I didn't really want to make, but I think it's important that I still do. So this weekend I'm doing a tour of the Blanche Valley. This is an area in Alpes-de-Haute-Provence. We're just south of a large lake called Lac de Serre-Pochon. This area has been on my radar for quite some time, and I've been planning a trip here because there's not one, not two, but three ski areas all within very close proximity of each other. So I'm just outside the small commune of Seyne, which is home to the first ski station, Le Grand Puy. Unfortunately, this is not a video that I wanted to make because in July of 2024, so just over 6 months ago, the Grand Puy actually announced its closure for the 2024-2025 season. So the history of the Grand Puy dates back to the late 1950s. In fact, in 1959 was the opening of the first official ski lift, and in the first decade after it opened in the 60s, they saw various upgrades, including new lifts and also the construction of the Grand Puy Hotel. So the golden age for skiing here was definitely in the 1970s. In the 80s, they started seeing a lack of snow and were forced to introduce the first snow cannons. This is not uncommon for ski stations of this size, and the general trend is showing that from the 80s and 90s, many stations below 1800 meters started seeing strong declines in snowfall year on year. So in the early 2000s, the resort really started to diversify and introduce other activities, such as leisure activities, downhill mountain biking, etc. But the lack of snow was really starting to affect their winter operations. For the 2016 season, the local municipality of Seyne decided to make a bold move and invest a lot of money into the refurbishment of the ski area. They invested nearly 3.5 million euros to upgrade the lifts, make them faster, make them more efficient. So despite the upgrades, in 2016, the season onwards, due to the lack of snow, they reported less than 6,000 skiers for the season, which, if you compare it with 10 years prior, the number was actually around 17,000 visitors per year. Obviously, this massive drop in revenue led them to reconsider the viability of skiing here. Upon their closure, they actually reported a deficit of around 350,000 per year to keep the station open. So after a short consultation and research period, the council last year in 2024 actually decided to put the future of the ski area into the hands of the community, and they called for a public vote, which I believe is a first of its kind. They voted in favor of shutting it down. So for many of the local residents, this was obviously very hard to accept. This is a long history of nearly 70 years of the station being open. So the restaurant on site, Le Chalet, is reviving itself and getting itself positioned for all-around tourist activities. It's just over there. I'm going to see if someone is there to make me a coffee. That'd be grand. So I just had a really interesting conversation with the manager or the owner of the chalet. He said that sometimes when it comes to the closure of a station, there's a financial element. There's obviously the climate change, weather impact, but he also reminded me that sometimes there can be a political element. So you know, the many stations, especially small stations, they would run at a deficit, and larger stations might run at a larger deficit, but ultimately they bring in tourism, they bring in customers, they're just the creation of a ski station brings in so many opportunities for the area that it's almost worth running some of these stations at a deficit. So that's an interesting view. I'll definitely include it in my video here. I didn't really think about that. So it's not talked about widely, but I would like to offer one other conclusion that I've made, which is that in the 1950s, when this area started, it might have been a very small community-based ski area, maybe just 1 or 2 ski lifts. But fast forward 70, 80 years, where we are traveling much further, we are exploring much further, it's hard to argue that the other ski stations in the area has nothing to do with the demise of this particular ski area here. So for part 2 of my journey of the Blanche Valley, I'm going to head about 20 kilometers just up the road, and I want to show you what I would argue is potentially one of the best ski areas in the whole of France. Let's go.